Welcome to the third edition of the Fantasy Football Factory Pod presented by Miller Lite as we get ready for the 2021 season. Drafts are heating up. Preseason is pretty much in the rearview mirror now. We got 1 week until the regular season starts next Thursday. I'm your host, Ben Mintz, joined, as always, by Steven Cheah. What's up, Mr. Cheah? How are you today?
How you doing, buddy? I am looking forward to this again. Preseason, 3 games. We have the extra bye, essentially, before the season starts. I didn't think I was going to like this when that plan rolled out, but from a fantasy perspective, that's what you want to see because we have injuries popping up. We have Travis Etienne going down last Monday night. We have J.K. Dobbins now out for the year. That happened on Saturday. We'll talk about that momentarily. But again, this pod has been presented by our friends at Miller Lite. Great tasting, less filling. I know you had your big draft this week in the auction draft. I'm sure a bunch of guys were cracking Miller Lites at those. No matter how strong your team is, football is unpredictable. If bad luck tanks your team 1 week, it's part of the game. I mean, nobody really goes undefeated in fantasy, but Miller Lite is undefeated in fantasy and in football. They're the absolute best. Great tasting, less filling. So when the gang's all here and the game is on, reach for the reigning champion of light beers. You can find Miller Lite pretty much everywhere beer is sold. I mean, you go to a bar, every bar has Miller Lite. Every grocery store, alcohol dispensary, beer place, they got Miller Lite always. Or you can go to millerlite.com/fantasy for delivery options near you. It's Miller time. We got a bunch of players that are going to be cracking up Miller time all year in the end zone. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Miller Lite, the absolute best. Great tasting, less filling, unlike some of these busts in fantasy.
Well, yeah, and we also want to thank Miller Lite. Lots of Miller Lites will be cracked next Wednesday in the office for the Fantasy Football Factory Draft. We've got our Barstool Draft. It's going to be the day before the Cowboys-Bucks next Thursday. We're very excited about that. Mr. Cheah, I know we've got some big plans.
Yeah, big time. The dozen teams are going to be used, so those natural rivalries are going to be intact. For anyone that does not know and is just kind of following this for the fantasy football aspect, the dozen is our trivia show in the Barstool office that has pretty heated teams throughout the office. Ben's part of the reigning champions, the Big Screaming Honkers.
Championship ring for the Big Screaming Honkers. I remember, if I remember right, the Yak, the number 1 seed in the tournament.
We were the number 3 seed.
We
were the number 1 remaining.
Okay. Yes, I heard somebody let them down in the semis, if I remember right.
That was me. I was reached out for a lifeline for a question that I knew and was not prepped on that I should be expecting a call.
But you are prepped for fantasy football season, and that's why y'all are listening to the Fantasy Football Factory. And drafts got going over the weekend, and we got a bunch of stuff to get to in today's show, and we're going to touch on this quickly. So what makes fantasy football great? Well, there's a million things to do, but there's just so many different ways you can go about it. You can have a snake draft, you can have an auction draft, you can have a 2 QB league, a 1 QB league, you can have different scoring systems, all kinds of different ways you could customize your league to make it unique. And you mentioned it. I had my $500 buy-in auction draft. It's a league that's been going on, started in 2002. Wow. When I was a young sophomore in college. The Mississippi-Texas Football League. It was a lot of Ole Miss and Texas people. Okay. And we had our 20th anniversary draft. And it's a $500 auction. And for those that are asking that are used to the regular snake, what's the difference between snake and auction? I am super pro auction. I think it adds a whole different element because everybody has the exact same shot at every player. Yep. Whereas in a snake draft, you see what pick you get the 8th pick. You're not getting all kinds of top guys. But when you're on the auction, everybody has a shot. How much do you want to pay? What kind of strategy do you want to have? Do you want to spend your money early on superstars because you trust your waiver wire ability all year to outwork the competition? Or do you wait and watch people overpay and just poach value left and right late in the draft? It's all kinds of different strategies. I love it. I feel very good about my team overall that we drafted on Saturday. But if you have not done an auction, if you're going to do an auction, though, highly recommend you need to do a live draft. It's not the same.
Absolutely.
No, like if you're doing snake draft online, that's cool. But auction is all about being in the same room. You can do it over Zoom, which we had to because, unfortunately, we were supposed to do it in New Orleans. And we're not going to get into that as much today. But I couldn't do it in New Orleans over the weekend as they're dealing with a lot of tough stuff with Hurricane Ida. But So much fun. The rivalries in the league, you talk smack. You know, a lot of times one of my favorite strategies is you bid up one of your rivals because you can tell when they're in love with someone. But then sometimes when you overdo it, you get stuck with someone you don't want because you're just pushing the needle too much. So there's just so many elements to it, and it's a lot of fun. And I just highly love the auction draft. If you've never done it, you got to come prepared because your first one or two and you're not used to it, it's a whole different ball game. You got to manage your money. It's a lot of stuff. I know, Mr. Cheah, you prefer the snake.
I prefer the snake. I'm a traditionalist. I like to go in knowing the pick, you know, whether it be an hour and a half or several weeks ahead of time. I'm sure, you know, we're both on camera. I'm sure we've been doing a lot of draft orders recently. But once you know where you're slotted, you can kind of formulate your strategy around that. So, you know, if you get the 12th pick, then you got the pick at the turn, assuming you're in a 12-team league, and then you can kind of plan for picks 3 and 4, etc. The auction, I have done auction drafts before. I guess to your point, I've never done an in-person auction draft. I've done it online, and my big gripe with it is it just went too fast. Like, guys get nominated so quickly, and I know when typical snake drafts, even it's like a minute in between picks, but once you get going, it's a lot harder to keep track of who is being taken because you can nominate any position, any player, whenever. Whereas Snake has some predictability where it's like, okay, the running backs are going to go early. You're going to have a couple wide receivers mix in, maybe Travis Kelce if it's a super flex league with 2 quarterbacks. You know, there's going to be some quarterbacks in the first round. So there's a little bit more predictability. Auction draft, like you said, to your point, you really have to come prepared because if you're not, you're going to be totally lost and your budget is not going to be going to the right places. I would like to do an auction draft if it's in person. Like you said, yours was like 4.5 hours or something like that. I think that's a great amount of time for a fantasy draft. The one that I did online was like, I think it was like barely over an hour. And it's just like, this was like way too quick. Now I don't like my roster. I feel like I'm in much more control with a snake draft just because I have the predictability. But to your point, I can see the appeal of the auction.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. Once you go auction, you get used to it. You never go back. I love it. We've been doing it since 2009, and you know, honestly, I feel pretty dang good about the squad I got, and that's good because it's a very, very tough league. And 20 years, man, that's pretty wild to have that thing go. We've had a lot of people come and go, but still kicking after 20 years. And
I've done one auction draft in my life, and Cheah, your boy Doug Martin, let me down that year.
I mean, he let me down several years, so I do not pity you for that.
The biggest mistake I see in our auction, and every league's different, but fantasy, and this is a fallacy for owners, everybody's always just so enticed with someone's potential. Like, you know, you see it with rookies a lot. Everybody's like,
everybody's drafting Kyle Pitts.
Everybody's obsessed. Everybody's obsessed with upside and not standard classic value. And so, you know, in the auction, it's like if you have the chance to be good and you have shine on you, people just overpay. And the biggest mistake in our auction is the bottom tier of like number 2 running backs. People, if they don't have a number 1 running back, overpay for, you know, like obviously Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara and Henry are going to go for a lot. But it's like that tier below where you see, like, I've been a big Najee Harris guy.
Sure.
I was not spending $44 on Najee Harris. I mean, like, some of those guys, like Kamara went for 48, Najee Harris went for 44. I mean, you see some crazy, crazy stuff on overpays.
It's the desperation factor, yeah.
And I've got like some of them, when I look at them here, like Najee Harris was 44. I thought that one was crazy. Some of the other ones that were a little nuts. Jonathan Taylor was 46. Granted, he's one of the, you know, led the NFL down the stretch in rushing, but I still don't think he's a top 5 back.
I've seen him ranked like around 6 in some places. I feel that's a little bit high. He's a surprising guy. He caught more passes than would be expected coming out of college. The storyline about him was this guy is never going to catch a pass. Like he was going to be, another Derrick Henry, but he kind of trumped that narrative last year.
Well, I'm going to just keep this quick because I don't want to go too long on the ramble about the auction because we got to get to our quarterback rankings, our sports book, our tight end rankings, our tight end sportsbook picks. But Patrick Mahomes, $52. It's a 2 quarterback league. 52 is high, but in 2 QB league, I don't mind it. My second quarterback's Carson Wentz for $4. I had to go cheap on the second quarterback. We'll see. $4 is good value, though. At least I have nothing invested and I think he's going to play sooner than people think. Aaron Jones, $45, number 1 running back. Some Steven Cheah influence, I'll admit. Mike Davis, $18, number 2 running back.
He's going to be a good player.
Wide receiving core, feel great about. A.J. Brown, $32. Cooper Kupp, $18. Let's go.
Love that pick.
And that's a steal.
Then I got Jamar Chase for $10. DJ Shark for $7. And Robbie Anderson, I got cheap as well for $3 late.
Big value.
So we start 3. I got 5 I like. I hope Jamar Chase, Shark, or Anderson goes off. Tight end, I took John New Smith for 2. Also took Evan Ingram for 2. Made the classic Steven Cheah mistake he warned not to do. Let's take a backup tight end.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Kind of feel bad about it. Backup rank, Zach Moss, $3. Excited about that. Took J.D. McKissick for 1 just because he catches a ton of balls. If I have to have like a fill-in for injuries, the kind of guy, the zero RB strategy you talk about, he can give me 8 to 10 points if I have to put him in there. In a flash, Kansas City Chiefs defense, 12-team league, feel pretty dang good about it, to be honest. And if Carson Wentz, it really comes down to if Wentz can just be okay, I feel good about the rest of this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's The Indianapolis Colts, Chris Ballard and Frank Reich are hanging their hat on the same thing. But let's talk about one more thing before we get into our quarterback rankings, and that is the preseason. Kind of what is the immediate ripple effect of the injuries that we've just seen. So Travis Etienne, we see with a Liz Frank injury, he's going to be out for the season.
Yeah, it's a tough break, too, because him and Lawrence already had such a good chemistry. And when you looked at what Urban Meyer was trying to do with Etienne in that offense, he was going to be lining him up out wide, using his receiving skills so much. And Lawrence was going to use him as his safety valve because he already had such a good chemistry. And as a rookie, getting used to the NFL, that was going to help him make him so much more comfortable. So big loss for the Jags. Immediately in fantasy, James Robinson flying up fantasy boards.
Yep.
Had a solid year last year. We felt it. He went for almost $30, which I thought was about right in the auction. And should be a solid RB2, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I moved James Robinson up to RB21, which is slightly higher than I had Travis Etienne going into last Monday night's game. I think James Robinson, really, really good rookie year. I think he finished RB7 overall in half-point PPR last year. I'm not quite as high on him as repeating that performance, but he definitely has a premier role now. But again, Jacksonville's going to be down a lot in games, as they were last year, in fairness. I just think that they have a little bit more confidence in the quarterback position this year.
They do. I will say this means Robinson might catch a few more balls now. Maybe a slate for you. In the same vein that last year David Montgomery had the big year after Tariq Cohen went down. Because when the receiving back and the offense goes down and you're used to playing from behind, he's going to end up in there. Maybe doesn't get many more carries, but should catch a few more balls.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery finished RB4 last year. And then the big one over the weekend, J.K. Dobbins. So, you never cheer for injuries, obviously. This is a big blow to the whole backfield. So what happens now? Gus Edwards now is going to step into the featured role, you'd think. News coming out to Tyson Williams. If you do not own him in fantasy, by the time you're listening to this, I would assume he's gone. If he's not, definitely go pick him up. It looks like he's going to be part of the running back by committee there. I would be surprised if Edwards was just like the workhorse. They've always done a committee there, even when they had Mark Ingram going with Gus Edwards and Lamar Jackson. So I would anticipate it being a similar three-headed monster. So if Williams is available on waivers right now and he's just in the free agent pool, you have to snatch him up.
How is his? I don't know tons about him. I know that he's got upside and people are excited. How is he catching the ball in the backfield?
He's good at catching the ball. He's a good pass blocker too. So I anticipate he's going to be in that third down role at the least. Okay. And then he also has really good contact. He was at 3 different colleges, I believe, but he sat out all last year with an injury. So he's back this year and he looks good. He scored a touchdown in preseason. He's a nice player. He's definitely worth taking a flyer on if you're wondering, of the projected pool of free agent running backs, the Sony Michels of the world, the Stevenson kid from the Pats, like who's really worth taking a flyer on. I would definitely go with Tyson Williams with the Ravens.
I think Edwards is just a power back. He's a type back. You know what he is. Yeah. I mean, he's a big dude. He can carry the load. If you've got a lead, you're going to pound him with the lead, but he's not a third down back. If in Baltimore is a team that does play with a lot of leads, that's kind of the knock on Lamar. They play with a lot of leads during the season. When he gets behind and you make him have third and longs and pocket pass, they struggle. But Gus Edwards is not a third down receiving back, so there should be a role for him.
Yep. Tyson Williams is ready to step into that role. He is Roman ready. And now that the world's opening back up, so many new thrills are on the horizon. So if you've been in a relationship for years, are just getting started, or want to get back out there and meet new people, when the moment comes, you want to be Roman ready, just like Tyson Williams. Go to getroman.com/Barstool now to talk to a U.S. licensed healthcare professional. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for erectile dysfunction. all from the comfort and privacy of your own home. We're looking at the Summer Love 2021 version, and Roman wants to make sure you can participate in your way, whether it be a single person or a couple who would rather still stay in and stay with each other. A U.S. licensed healthcare professional will work with you to find that best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, it ships to you free with 2-day shipping. It's very discreet, straightforward, convenient. Getting started is simple. Again, go to GetRoman.com/Barstool to complete an online visit. Take care of your ED without leaving your home. Complete an online visit today. Go to GetRoman.com/Barstool. And if you're prescribed, get 50% off your first month of ED treatment. Make sure you have the confidence and control this summer. Roman ready. Tyson Williams, pick them up.
Highly recommend being Roman ready by prepping for your fantasy drafts as well.
Got to prep. Did a lot of prep for this show. We got 2 position groups we're going over. Let's talk about the quarterbacks, where you have them ranked. We do not see eye to eye on several of these guys. We don't see eye to eye on
much stuff in general, though, Shay, other than the fact that we love football, NFL, and fantasy football, and we work for Barstool Sports. I think that's about what similarities in. We both cheer for NFC South teams.
Yes. Talk to me a guy who I've seen in the comments, people are saying your voice sounds a lot like, and that's Patrick Mahomes, who is your QB1.
Well, that's no question for me. Patrick Mahomes, and paid $52 for him in my auction. There's the only weakness I come up with on Mahomes. Well, he was a little nicked up last year. I mean, he dealt with a lot. Mm-hmm. KC tends to, when they get big leads, they freeze it in the second half. Like if they get up 14 or 21 points and they'll have this big first half, they shut it down. That's the only negative I could come up with on Mahomes. The receiving core maybe not quite as deep this year. Sammy Watkins leaving, McCole Hardeman, who they've kind of been waiting on to step up, has been very inconsistent.
Byron Pringle.
Yeah, can he do it? But overall, KC retooled their offensive line, which was, I mean, their carcasses are laying on the field in the Super Bowl still, and that was what killed them in the Super Bowl. But I have all the faith in Patrick Mahomes to continue dominating. And the biggest thing, look, Mahomes, he does have a little sneaky more rushing value than you think. The thing, quarterbacks that run, obviously that's a huge thing in fantasy. That's why you see Josh Allen ranked so high and Kyler Murray ranked so high and Lamar Jackson do what he does. I feel like year after year, that's not always the most sustainable thing because those kind of quarterbacks get banged up more. With Patrick Mahomes, he's throwing for over 40 touchdowns. He's going to throw for over 300 yards a game. He's the quarterback of the most consistent offense in pro football. I love the weapons of Tyreek. He's got one of the top receivers in Tyreek Hill, top tight end in Travis Kelce, one of the top coaches in Andy Reid. He's got a stronger arm than anybody. He's not afraid to push the ball down the field. And he's got a great voice. I mean, what can you say? I actually used to do fake Patrick Mahomes radio segments. He got to that point. He doesn't get quite as enthusiastic as I do. I try to say like outlandish stuff he'd never say. Yeah. But either way, number one QB. I'll admit because of his voice, I'm a little biased toward him, but thrilled to have him. And he's my number one guy.
So here's the thing about Mahomes. I have him as QB2 in fantasy.
Okay.
He is a safe guy for the reasons that you mentioned. Like he's gonna run for about 300 yards, which is some. It's not a lot. You're figuring about 20 or 15, 20 yards a game.
He sneaks in the end zone a little bit though.
He's had 2 rushing touchdowns a year the past couple of years. That's not really what you want. When you talk about, especially in like Superflex leagues, when you're going after dual threat quarterbacks early, Patrick Mahomes is not what I envision. Did you see him running like 500 yards in the Super Bowl, like, sideline to sideline? Yes. And he can run.
No, that wasn't really my choice, though.
Yes, he can run, but he is so valuable from the pocket and with his arm that they're not going to put him in those circumstances. I'll get into that a little bit with Josh Allen later. But you don't see Patrick Mahomes being used intentionally as a runner for that reason, to protect him. That's why I don't have him as quarterback 1. Like he'll get you around 5,000 yards passing. He'll be anywhere between 38 and 50 touchdowns, which is great.
Lovely. Which is lovely.
I don't have that rushing upside that I would with a Josh Allen or a Kyler. So he's my, or a Lamar Jackson. He's my quarterback 2 for those reasons. I think he's safe. I just don't think he will be like 1-1 quarterback. Like I don't think he has the quarterback 1 potential, just because there's always going to be a rushing quarterback. I mean,
for him to be number 1, he has to do what he did 2 years ago when he throws for over 5,050 touchdowns. And that's asking a lot. And I just feel like I try the safe part of it is a big part.
Right. So last year he finished quarterback 4, which is a little bit lower than I feel like most people would guess. Like if you ask, just regular people about their fantasy teams, like where did Patrick Mahomes finish last year? He played all the games. You figure he's going to be right there, but not the case.
Man, he also had one of those years last year where he had about 3 different injuries during the season, and I know that's part of it. that's part of it. But still, I just feel like he's going to be a little healthier this year. Hopefully this retooled offensive line helps.
Yeah. So I'm going with Josh Allen for quarterback 1.
Okay.
And a couple of reasons. So he finished last year QB1. It is rare that quarterbacks repeat as QB1, but his rushing yards. So he averages 100 carries the past 3 years with 25 total rushing touchdowns in that time. That is a significant jump from what Kyler's going to give you. He threw 37 touchdowns last year. He has like a cannon for an arm. He's got good receivers. They have a winning formula in place for him to succeed. And, 69% completion percentage last year. He was very improved on that. But just his rushing upside, his size gives me a little bit more confidence. He's like a 230, 240 guy. Gives him a lot more confidence. He can withstand that. So I really, really like Josh Allen, quarterback 1 for me in fantasy.
I've got Josh Allen number 3, but still love him. I mean, I don't want to sound like there's no tier. We always talk about tiers in fantasy.
Yep.
Josh Allen's a tier 1 guy. I had a very tough debate with my top 3. He ended up 3, but he could be 1. That's not a slight on him at all.
I think similar to running backs, there's a pretty clear top 3 in quarterbacks, and we're unanimous in that.
Yeah, so I've got Mahomes 1. I have Kyler Murray 2 because I think he's putting on a show in the desert this year. I think that he ran for over, I believe it was over 700 yards last year, I think is what I saw.
Yep.
I think he had some extra rushing value, but I think the passing offense is going to continue to take a step forward as he gets more and more comfortable in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and they continue to add weapons. And I love Arizona on that fast track at home, and I think he's going to have a huge year this year, and it's going to be crazy in the desert, and I think their offense takes a step forward even farther, and that's why I have him slightly ahead of Josh Allen, even though I do really like Josh Allen too. I know there's going to be people on here saying, hey, Mintz, the hell with you, how could you have Josh Allen number 3? I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are so close here. I'm a fan of all 3.
Yep.
It's nitpicking.
Yeah, so Kyler got hurt week 9 last year. He re-injured his shoulder week 11, and his production dipped a lot after that because he carried the ball a lot less. You're going to carry the ball a lot less, be willing to take a lot less hits, take fewer hits when you're nursing a shoulder injury, assuming he's in good health, but he is slight of frame. He's 5'10", about 210.
That's the gamble with him against Josh Allen.
Yeah, and that's why I like Josh Allen number 1. One thing to consider, though, in fantasy, at least the way I play, I feel like everyone should be playing like this. You don't play to make it to the playoffs. You play to win the whole thing. Kyler Murray's schedule in playoff times, we're talking, and this is the new 18-week league, week 15, week 16, week 17. We got at Detroit versus Indianapolis, and then at Dallas.
Ooh.
Indianapolis, okay defense.
Still at home, though, and Indy known for their run D.
Yep.
Team you can throw it against a little bit in the dome.
Yeah, so I like that schedule a lot. Kyler Murray could have a very big playoffs, assuming he stays healthy.
Yeah, that is the big assumption with this slight of frame. But love all top 3. Let's delve from there. And I've got Dak Prescott at 4. I freaking love him in this offense. I'm not buying the shoulder thing. I'm just going to come out and say they said Jerry Jones said he's going to be ready for week 1. I think it was an excuse to kind of shut him down in preseason. And I think he's going to be ready. I think they're going to score tons of points. I still think their defense sucks. I don't think Dan Quinn solves anything. And I think, and then I think they're going to be playing tons of shootouts. When you look at the weapons, his chemistry with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb's going to take another step forward. Michael Gallup's one of the top 3, top number 3 receivers in the NFL. Hopefully Blake Jarwin stays healthy. I really liked him a lot last year before he tore his ACL. They're chunking the football. I mean, heck, I missed a question on the dozen last week. They were like, who's the only quarterback to have 3 450-yard games in the same season? No, I thought it was Dak, but I was like, oh, man, he was out in week 5 last year. It couldn't have been like the first name that went in my head was Dak. But I was like, it can't be him. He was out week 5 last year. Oh, yeah, he did it already in the first 4 weeks. He's going to keep chunking it. The only question with Dak is, how much do his running stats take a hit coming off that knee injury? But I think they score enough points and he still will sneak a little bit of rushing touchdowns. He's my number 4 because – and this is a fallacy of me as a fantasy owner, but like Lamar Jackson, the running, I just can't trust him. I don't trust him. I'll just say it. He can run for all he wants. I don't trust the guy. I think he may get hurt 1 year too.
I love running quarterbacks in fantasy. Like that's kind of where you make your money. Dallas scored touchdowns on 33% of the drives that Dak was healthy last year. Is that sustainable? Probably not, but like over the short span that we saw last year, very explosive. He personally is my quarterback 7.
Okay.
I am high on him, but like I'm going to take Lamar Jackson, my quarterback 4. The past 2 years, over 1,000 rushing yards. He's great. I really like him. 2,700 passing yards last year, which is a bit low. 26 touchdowns. but he offers that rushing versatility, which is such a safe floor that pretty much anything he gives you from a passing side is just kind of whipped cream on the top. Like, he is great.
I have Lamar at 5. I like him too.
Yep. Who do you got? So number 5, I got Aaron Rodgers, who you were actually pretty low on.
Yeah, I still like him. I mean, I've got him top 10.
You have him at 10, which is...
I have him 10. I think he takes...
He finished QB2 last year.
I know. I think he takes a slight step back this year.
It'll be interesting because last year he had 48 passing touchdowns.
Exactly. He had like his career. I just feel like there's a regression after that career 48 touchdown year. I still think he's good, but he doesn't throw for 5,000 yards usually.
He doesn't. So
I think he should throw for 42 or 4,300 yards and mid-30s touchdowns. Be good.
What's really interesting about Aaron Rodgers is, we talk about the arm talent. He's got just an incredible arm. You picture him throwing Hail Marys, throwing touchdowns. What's good about him is they do throw the ball inside the red zone, like Devontae Adams inside the red zone. Crazy.
They kind of got that motion thing going that you see Alabama use with Devontae Smith.
Yep.
That's become the in vogue thing is the different goal line offenses and the quick hits to the receiver when everybody's jamming the box. And Green Bay kind of was pushing the needle with that.
Look at the numbers. Anybody that's going to draft Aaron Rodgers, I would encourage you to look at your numbers and consider your scoring system, because if you're playing in a league that has 6 points per passing touchdown, Aaron Rodgers becomes way more valuable than a standard league. He can move. He doesn't really offer a ton of rushing upside. I would not consider him a dual quarterback threat. And as far as passing yards, he doesn't throw the ball a ton. You mentioned it. He threw the ball. He averages 362 attempts the past 2 years, which are both under Matt LaFleur. That's under 22 passes a game. We're talking about, Ben Roethlisberger was throwing 50 times a game last year. Aaron Rodgers, not that guy. He's going to be very accurate with those passes, but you're not getting these high volume stats. Like, he is not a threat really to throw for 5,000 yards, despite when you might think Aaron Rodgers, he could throw for 1 million yards. Not the case, because he's not calling the plays. Yeah,
definitely. But like another situation here too that we mentioned talking about the tiers. I mean, I've kind of got my 6 through 11 or 6 through 10 or 11 are all on the second tier, and it's close.
Mm-hmm.
It's just personal preferences.
Yep.
And we're going to go ahead and get into my number 6 and watch Steven Cheah bash me. And I don't give a damn, because I don't care what Steven Cheah thinks. I care what I think. And I have Ryan Tannehill number 6, and I freaking love him because since he's been a Tennessee Titan, he's been a monster. And this offense plays shootouts every week. And I don't know, we discussed in the last one, the Julio Jones thing.
Yep.
We're not quite, I do think he's an upgrade over Corey Davis, but that's not going to be the big thing. But he's got A.J. Brown. Tennessee plays shootouts nonstop. They can't stop anybody. They've been the best over team. And since he was inserted in week 8, 2 years ago, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He had the number 1 QBR 2 years ago. He had another spectacular year, and he can move. He doesn't rush a ton, but he does a little bit. Gets you a little rushing value. I'm still big on him. I think they play shootouts. Come at me with the hate. Ryan Tannehill, number 6.
So he is my QB 11.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen more drafts that I've been asked to grade that have Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback, and I don't love it, and I'll tell you this reason. So he finished QB 7 last year. You're right. He's been very efficient. CBS is always going to throw up that graphic where he has very similar stats to Patrick Mahomes over a certain number of games. He has Julio Jones now, so it's like, all right, some attention off A.J. Brown. Maybe they're going to, take that 8th defender out of the box so Derrick Henry can have a little more freedom, et cetera, et cetera. Here's again, you play for the playoffs in fantasy. I am not a believer in streaming quarterbacks. You dance with the guy who brought you. If you draft, especially if you're in a 1 QB league, if you draft Lamar Jackson, if you draft Aaron Rodgers, if you draft, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, whoever, you want to start that guy in your playoffs. Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs this year, again, week 15, 16, 17, at Pittsburgh versus San Francisco. Very good defense on Thursday night versus Miami. That is revenge game potentially, but that is a murderer's row for a quarterback going into the fantasy playoffs. Ryan Tannehill might get you to the fantasy playoffs, but he's not going to win you a championship.
We'll see. I'm not as panicking about that lineup of defense. At Pittsburgh, I don't love. I'll say that. But
San Francisco on Thursday night.
Yeah, San Francisco's got a great deal on if they stay healthy. I do like them, but we'll see. We'll see.
I got defense.
I got faith. I got faith in Mr. Tannehill, but I also will say my second tier. I spent like 20 minutes juggling these, and they were all nitpicking. I have Matthew Stafford number 7. I freaking love him in Sean McVay's offense, and just like you and I talked about how much we love Cooper Kupp, who we're on, like Robert Woods, like Tyler Higbee. I think Sean McVay's been window dressing a turd with Jared Goff for years. And that offense has been played. You go through the stats. You look at the metrics. The Rams had way more play action yards than anybody. Granted, Tennessee has a lot as well. But way more than anybody because he's covering up for Goff's weaknesses. Well, now McVay finally has the guy he wants in the gunslinger, and he's going to chunk the crap out of the ball. And they're going to score a ton of points. And Stafford, who's been stuck in a hellish situation in Detroit, has a second lease on life playing for a Super Bowl contender. He's so pumped. He's going to chunk it. They're going to score a ton of points. He's my number 7. Let's go.
Matthew Stafford is my number 8. I'm in line with you. I think he's a dark horse for MVP.
I do too.
Like their run, I just, we'll get into the sports book, but his over under for touchdown passes this year is 26.5. Like if he stays healthy, that's an absolute slam dunk. Like he threw 26 touchdowns to nobodies in Detroit last year. He's got a much better coach, much better offense, much better receivers. There's no reason to think. Plus, their running back situation is just like whoever's getting a handoff is getting hurt in LA right now for the Rams. So Matthew Stafford is going to have to sling it way over 26.5. I love him. He's my quarterback 8. I've got your quarterback 8 is Russell Wilson. I have him at quarterback 6. There's no safer guy than Russell Wilson, who I also think is a dark horse MVP candidate. But he's the only guy to throw 30 touchdowns or more in 3 years in a row. And he's just so safe. He's my quarterback 6. I think he's actually going to be better this year. He's kind of faded during the stretch. Now they got Shane Waldron, who used to be at the Rams, as their OC. I think it's going to cater to a lot more three wide receiver sets. I think he's going to air it out a bit more and more consistently. Everyone's going to say, let Russ cook. I think he actually is going to cook this year. He's my quarterback 6, but you're a little bit lower.
I've got him number 8. I really like him. And I'll just tell you what bothers me about Wilson is the Seattle offense consistency. He'll go off some games, but some games, I feel like I've, for years in this Wilson era, look up and they're down 10-7 in the third. They're just games where they are just so in ruts on offense. And a lot of times Wilson bails it out in the fourth. He's known for just going off in the fourth because the D linemen get tired to chase him around the whole game and the pass rushes wear out. But I just don't love the consistency of this offense year after year. I am excited about the new offensive coordinator hire, though. That could fix it. But I like Wilson. Like I said, I'm going to catch heat like, oh, man, F you, Mintz, Tannehill and Stafford over Wilson. I love Wilson. He's still really good. I just got him number 8.
He's another guy. He's another guy to watch out down the stretch if you're talking playoffs. At LA Rams versus Chicago. A nice one in the final if you get there versus Detroit, but
here's the biggest thing on Seattle. I want to reiterate one more thing on Wilson. Their O-line is the reason I'm a little more down on him. They tried to fix it this year. They never put big money in their O-line. And in that division, you got the Rams and Niners D-lines who tear their ass up at the line of scrimmage 4 games a year. Yep. And it makes frustrating life for Wilson, and it's not fun to start him in those games. That's a big reason I don't like him as much.
We both have the GOAT, Tom Brady, at 9 overall in fantasy. 40 touchdowns last year. Added 3 rushing touchdowns, which was nice. So 43 total, 12 picks. All 22 starters are back. He's also got a nice playoff schedule versus New Orleans, at Carolina, at the Jets. Played on a torn MCL last year. I don't know if you watched the game. I assume you didn't watch Bucs Houston preseason week 3. Bucs debuted a no-huddle offense. Holy cow.
Man, I juggled with taking Brady even higher, but the Tampa thing, there could be some of the similar. They're going to have a lot of leads. And Brady, if anybody doesn't care about their stats and wants to win more than Tom Brady.
Correct.
And so that's the thing. He's not worried about his fantasy football season. He's worried about the real playoffs and winning his 8th ring, not the Super Bowl, not the fantasy Super Bowl. However, having said that, this offense is going to be a freaking machine this year. The O-line, the Tristan Wirfs pick last year worked out. The O-line has stabilized. Antonio Brown being there, him and Brady have a good chemistry. I don't know how you're going to guard Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Grant showed that when they need him, he's still there. Last year, I talked about this so much, was Tampa last year was designed to peak in the playoffs. They had to deal with COVID, Brady learning a new system, all kinds of stuff. This year, everybody's back. They're going to be a well-oiled machine, and they're going to kick the crap out of a lot of people. And Brady should be awesome in fantasy. The only negative I have is, like I said, they're going to blow out a lot of teams, so they're going to freeze it. And then, he's 44, but does that age is nothing but a number, apparently. Nothing. So love Tom Brady. Have him over Aaron Rodgers. Love.
So you have Rodgers at 10. I had him at 5. We talked about him. I got Justin Herbert at 10. You have him at 11. So I think we're kind of in lockstep here. I think he's super talented. I think he could be, the next guy when we talk about, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray. Like, I think that he can be, or we shouldn't even put Kyler Murray in that sense.
Quite that much,
but Justin Herbert could be one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league for the next decade plus. That being said, he's going at QB6 right now. in ADP. I don't love that. I think it's a little too high for him. I think we're anointing him a little too quickly. I think Austin Eckler might catch 130 passes. Like, I think he's going to catch a ton of balls. But I don't love Justin Herbert as much as everyone else. He does have a nice playoff schedule versus Kansas City on Thursday Night Football, at Houston and Denver. Not bad.
Those Denver games are usually slugfest for the Chargers. But I'll say this, Justin Herbert, Joe Lombardi, former Saints quarterback coach, now their new OC. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Mike Williams needs to stay healthy. I think that's a big thing because Hunter Henry is no longer there. They signed Jared Cook to replace him. I know he knows Lombardi's offense from the Saints. Get him the hell out of New Orleans. I'll never forgive you for that fumble, you son of a bitch. And anyway, so that's a big downgrade to me. They need Mike Williams to step up and give Keenan Allen some help. You mentioned Austin Eckler is going to catch a ton of balls. I think Herbert's going to be solid. I've got him 11. I don't have him 6.
Yeah, so let's kind of just highlight some things that we're different on. There's 2 guys I want to talk about. One is Jalen Hurts. So I have him 12. I've seen him ranked as high as 8.
Oh, I have to.
Ladies have him 8.
ESPN has him 10.
You have him 25. Why?
Because I don't think he's going to start all year because I think he sucks and the Eagles don't trust him. Yeah, when he plays, he does have some running value. They just traded for Gardner Minshew. They're involved in Deshaun.
We're going off a 4-game sample from last year.
Yeah, well, we're going off of a sample. Look, I'm no scout, I'm no coach, but he can't progression pass in the NFL. He's going to drop back and he's going to focus on his one option, and he's going to glance at his 2, and he's going to run around, and it's not going to be sustainable. His receivers suck. I don't know who the hell's coaching him. I mean, I've followed NFL my whole life. I've never heard, like, Nick Sirianni's the least I've ever known about a head coaching hire ever. They hired him, and you got rid of Doug Peterson, my hometown guy who won a Super Bowl for a guy nobody's ever heard of. You deserve to suck, Philly. All y'all that trust Jalen Hurts just because he can move around a little bit, have fun with it when he's on the bench in week 6.
That was such a bad draft pick.
I'm over it. He has some running upside, so let's draft him top 10. I get having a rushing quarterback helps, but you know what else helps? Having a quarterback on a team that can score points and having a quarterback that's not going to get his ass put on the bench. 2 things I can't say about Jalen Hurts.
The Eagles trading for Gardner Minshew this weekend was weird.
That was a big part of it.
I get that Nick Mullins and Joe Flacco haven't really tore it up in preseason, but those guys are veterans. You kind of know what you're getting from them. If Jalen Hurts doesn't pan out, which everyone expects him to really have the green light this full year, why are you worrying so much about your backup quarterback after the last preseason game? That's a very telling thing for me.
That was a very large red flag and part of my logic here.
Yeah, I tweeted that and I was getting ratioed with all these Eagles fans being like, Jalen Hurts is going to be awesome. Like, maybe he will, but it is weird that you're trading for a backup, not only like a backup quarterback, but a backup quarterback who's viewed as one of the best backup quarterbacks and still has potential. He's going into year 3? Like, Gardner Minshew is a threat to Jalen Hurts' job.
I've watched I'm an SEC guy. I watch college football. Hurts did well at Oklahoma. I feel like I could do good playing quarterback at Oklahoma with that system and that Big 12. Maybe not, but I don't know. I don't feel like that buys him too much with me, and Tua beat him out. And the biggest thing as I come back to is I just don't think he's an NFL progression passer. So we'll see.
So one more guy I want to talk about. I unfortunately had one of my leagues that typically drafts on Labor Day draft a few weeks early. We drafted on Monday night during the Saints versus Jaguars game. I was just sitting there. The Saints had said they didn't name their starter, and it's a Superflex league, so 2-quarterback league. I got Lamar Jackson early, and I'm just kind of waiting, and all these quarterbacks going off the board. So 1 quarterback left there. And, where I draft is at the intersection of Value Street and Opportunity Avenue. And there was a guy sitting there named Jameis Winston, and I think it was round 8, which in a Superflex league, like, all the quarterbacks were off the board.
That's
pretty much Jameis or Mac Jones.
No, he should be like 4th round pick.
And he hadn't been named the starter yet, so I quickly checked on the game, and he'd just thrown in like a long touchdown to Marquez Callaway, and it's like, all right, Jameis' stats looking good. He's probably going to get the job. When Jameis Winston plays, he's my QB 14. He's also your QB 14.
Oh, yeah.
When he plays, he puts up fantasy numbers. He's not a good player, but he is a good fantasy quarterback. There's a very big difference. So, everybody remembers the 5,000 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, 30 picks, ending on a pick 6. The guy finished QB3 that year in fantasy. Like, he puts up numbers. He puts up a lot of bad numbers, but he puts up a lot of good numbers too. The good part about fantasy is Most leagues, interceptions and fumbles are -2. They're not game breakers. Whereas in real life football, turnovers are absolutely game breakers. So fantasy kind of caters to Jameis Winston. I don't have Jameis Winston derangement syndrome, despite what Jameis 1 of 1 would have you believe. I think he definitely has the tools. And with Sean Payton, I like him as a fantasy quarterback. Call me crazy, but I think he's like a very good QB2.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the Sean Payton thing, because you look at the Saints. The Saints offense has been top 10 every single year since Payton's been there. And granted, he's had Drew Brees. Still 15 years of it, though. The consistency's there. The Saints are 8-1 when Brees doesn't play the last couple of years. Granted, that those were some lower scoring games. That wasn't because they were scoring 40 a game. I remember certain Bridgewater 13-12 type wins. But no, Winston's going to chunk it. And the question with the Saints is the weapons. You look at Michael Thomas's injuries this season, is who the hell knows. Got to love Alvin Kamara. Callaway flashed on Monday Night Football, but preseason you always take with a grain of salt.
Yep.
You can't overdo that. But just the fact that Winston's not afraid to push the ball down the field, Sean Payton's offense, Saints always score points. Also like the fast track in the Superdome. It's good for higher scoring games. I've got I have number 14. They're close. I have them right behind. I have Kirk Cousins 13. Those two are really close.
One more I want to get into before we switch over to another topic on quarterbacks is a guy we're also very different on, and that's Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I have him at QB 16. You have him not in your top 25.
26. I think the Washington football team offense is horrendously bad, and we'll see if Fitzpatrick is the upgrade over. And I do think he's better than Alex Smith, who was out there with one knee last year.
We're talking about fantasy, right?
In real life, he's better too.
Okay, well let's keep this to fantasy, because we're talking about Jameis Winston being a good player. Fantasy, Ryan Fitzpatrick in his last 18 starts averages 20 fantasy points. That's good. That's really good. And we're talking about a guy you can get at a QB2 at a value. And we're talking about schedules. His playoff schedule, best in the league. At Philly, at Dallas versus Philly. That's why I'm buying all these Washington football team players. They got it made down the stretch. These guys are going to cash in for you during playoff time.
I do like Cheah. I love your confidence. I admire your swag, worrying all about the playoffs. But I still look at the full body. I mean, I think playoff time does matter more, and I do keep an eye on it. But I'm analyzing the full, especially now it's a 14-game regular season too. A lot of games overall. I just don't trust the Washington football team offense, period. And they may come out and score 25 points a game and prove me wrong. We'll see. But I'm not taking it. I'm literally not touching any of them.
Well, let's talk about quarterbacks in kind of a different light. And
can I mention Sam Darnold real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because this is the one. Sam Darnold is the boomer bust guy this year, and his value is so far down that he's worth taking a shot on, because he gets out of a terrible situation with Adam Gase of the Jets. Now, another guy that struggles to take care of the football. That's certainly an issue. However, there are a lot of things to like about this Carolina situation. Christian McCaffrey, best pass-catching running back like him. Love the DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall, number 3 receiver. Love Joe Brady calling the plays. They don't have a great defense. The NFC South, known for overs and higher scoring games historically. I think Darnold has some upside. I've got him at QB 20. I don't know that I would want to have him as my second quarterback in a 2-quarterback league as a starter, but I love taking him as my third on he could be a solid number 2 because the upside's there.
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of an unknown. Something that would worry me is Teddy Bridgewater, when he exited Carolina, said that they didn't really practice red zone offense. Like, he was like, we didn't do this nearly enough. And then we're seeing it early in the preseason, Carolina's not converting in the red zone. So is there actual, smoke where there is fire, or fire where there is smoke here? Sam Darnold worries me. Like DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, they're not big red zone guys. Like, I think DJ Moore is something like 3 for 21 in his career in the red zone with converting them to touchdowns. That's something I would worry about. I actually do think Carolina is going to be a decent team this year, but I'm not a huge buyer on Sam Darnold from a fantasy perspective for a lot. I think Chris McCaffrey's going to be lights out.
Well, I just think Darnold are going to push the ball down the field more. Bridgewater's a nightmare in fantasy because it's nothing but check downs. It's Alex Smith part 2. And I think Darnold will throw more picks, but there will be more points scored in the games as they're going to push him more down the field. And I'm very curious, him reuniting with Robbie Anderson too could be interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. ADPs. Like, how early is too early to select the quarterback? There's 2 very, very different league formats. Let's talk about the traditional 1 QB first. What is the earliest you would take a quarterback?
Man, I'm in a 1 quarterback league. I'm very dicey about taking one even before. maybe third round, probably fourth. I'm very dicey about it because you look at the overall NFL, there's 32 teams. You're in a 1 QB league with 12 teams.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many options. And I know you like to roll with your one guy, but you can take two of these guys and play matchups even if you didn't worry about it till the 10th round. I just don't think and I want to go ahead and use this time to advocate. Y'all are all idiots. Well, idiots is this. Y'all aren't idiots. You're listening to the best fantasy football podcast. I never want to say idiots. You're making an incorrect, suboptimal decision if you don't do Superflex.
Suboptimal, yes.
Suboptimal. You're not an idiot if you're listening to this podcast. Clearly, you're brilliant. But regardless of that, the NFL, and here's why. The NFL is a quarterback league. Quarterbacks are the stars. Why would you not want to start two QBs when they're the stars? It's harder to get two running backs out there half the time now than two quarterbacks. How much they get hurt and all the running back platoons, it makes no sense. When you start two quarterbacks in a fantasy league, here are my number 21 through 24 quarterbacks. Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, Tua, Justin Fields. These guys are, NFL stars may be a strong term, but they're big NFL guys.
Yep.
They matter. They should be starting on fantasy teams. They should be relevant. Starting a one quarterback league, one quarterback is outdated. You want to do two. And in a one quarterback league, probably fourth round. I'll admit it. I'm a homer. When Patrick Mahomes is available mid-third round, I'm having a hard time not hitting the submit button. He has a great voice. He throws the ball down the field. He's fun to watch. But in general, I'm waiting in the 1 QB league. In the 2 QB league, I'm going super early.
So Mahomes' ADP right now in 1 QB leagues is 21. That's high. That's back in the second round for most 12
I'd say
team
27 or 28 is where I'm hitting the button. And
okay,
I'm not
early
doing
round.
it, and I'm doing it I'm not doing it being smart. I'm doing it because I'm in love with him.
But the difference between QB1, if you're in a 10-team league, the difference in fantasy points between QB1 and QB10 is like 4 or 5 points a game, right?
Per game.
I think it comes out not being that much.
There's definitely guys you can get. Like Fitz, if he's putting up 20 points on average his last 18 starts, you can play that on 1 QB league. That plays. So right now I would tend to agree. What I would encourage anyone who's thinking about going quarterback early is to just double check your scoring system, because there's such a huge difference between 6 points per passing touchdown and 4. 4 is a standard, but some leagues have 6 points.
We're 4.5 in my big one, which I think's interesting.
4.5? What are we doing?
We should do 5.
What are we doing? That's impossible to tally up in real time. I guess we have apps for that, but
there you go.
That's
2021, bro.
That's ridiculous. But anyway, if you have a juice scoring system where it does play towards passing yardage, or passing touchdowns are worth more, or interceptions are worth less. I play in a league where interceptions are -1. Pay attention to those things and then think about the players that you're targeting and where, just because you can get some values. And if you have a league that is 6-point passing touchdowns, I'm not afraid to go one of these guys top of the second round.
No, if it's a 6-point passing touchdown league, it devalues the rushing quarterback so much.
Yes.
So much. It changes the entire rankings. Because, you mentioned it earlier. The rushing quarterbacks are ranked really high here because it's a cheat code getting the 6 points for rushing touchdowns and passing, or 4. Because it just really changes that whole dynamic.
Yeah. In a 2-quarterback league, though, in the Superflex league,
I'm going so early.
Quarterbacks are going off the board immediately. Patrick Mahomes' ADP right now is 2.
Yeah, no, and here's why, too, for that. Not just the quarterback, there's so much more of a premium on them when 24 starting in a 32-team league. And a lot of times, if you're doing a 2 QB league, do a Superflex, because you have to deal with bye weeks and stuff. Some weeks, it's hard to get 2 quarterbacks out in the field. You don't want to have a situation where you don't have 2 when people have bye weeks and stuff. So
for people that don't know, a Superflex league, instead of being 2 mandatory quarterback positions, it'll be 1 quarterback, and then the flex will be quarterback, running back, receiver, or tight end.
But I'm so pro that. We switched to it a few years ago, and it's another one of those things, just like the auction. Once you go that way, you can never go back. And the other thing, too, so if it's a 2 QB league, you take QBs early. One of the biggest things, and it's a fallacy in fantasy, so often the running backs, for obvious reasons, there's a premium on those bell cow backs because there aren't many anymore. But running backs, look at the top of this fantasy podcast. They go down like flies.
They do.
It's so hard to keep running backs healthy. How many times have you taken a running back first round and him gotten hurt and your season gone to crap? These quarterbacks most of the time will stay on the field more, and you can trust that.
So I did a study on this a couple of years ago So I claim to have invented the 0 RB strategy. Was I probably the first one to do it? No, but I've done it several times between 2009 and present. And what I did was I looked at the number of top 25 scoring positions at each position. So quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, and if they were drafted in the first 6 rounds. Wide receiver turned out to be 80%. So 80% of the top 25 scoring receivers were drafted in the first 6 rounds. Running backs, the number is 48%. So there's a huge gap, 32% between top scorers in the first 6 rounds at that positions. What that means is you can get a good running back that can be a top scoring player and not draft him in the first 6 rounds. You can get Mike Davis. You can get maybe Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor last year. Like, a lot of these guys were not going that high. You need to find value. So just do more research, get up on these guys. Tyson Williams could be a guy who, in the right situation, if things break for him, Darrell Henderson with the Rams, these are guys that you can get good value on that can, turn into top 25 scoring.
In the running back thing, so much of winning in a fantasy season long is about you're managing the waiver wire, free agency, and caring. Yep. You've got to put in that time. In the running back, no place more than people are going to get hurt, and you finding that value than the running back waiver wire.
Yeah.
Let's get before we get to our tight end rankings, we need to tell you about our friends at Roback. Roback Activewear, you all know Roback. It's the best fit, it's the best feel, and they just dropped their new performance polos just in time for football season. When we say the designs are fire, we mean it. So if you're hitting the golf course or need a fire polo for a night out, Roback has you covered. We've worn these polos 100 times and the collars still look brand new with incredibly soft fabric. And Roback's gear is now popping up all over the NFL. Studs like Scary Terry McLaurin, Quentin Nelson,
wide receiver 9,
and Bengals defensive end Sam Hubbard have all been seen repping the gear. It's quickly becoming the go-to activewear in the league. Roback just restocked the performance hoodies as well, and I'm not kidding when we say these are the absolute softest, highest quality hoodies in the game.
The best.
The material is just incredibly soft, and the stretch is unmatched. Nobody does hoodies like Roback. So if you play football, you want to win your fantasy football league, or you're just a football fan, you wear Roback. Simple as that. Use the code FACTORY, FACTORY, on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off your first order on all polos, Q-zips, hoodies, and tees with code FACTORY. Go check them out at Roback.com.
Love it. Before we get into tight ends, let's talk about our lines for quarterbacks.
I'm sorry. And then once again, we want to reiterate, we're going to be doing tons of props with the Barstool Sportsbook.
Yep.
We're doing some season-long ones. Shay doing a great job on the blog with that as well. I'm going to be blogging that too. And we're going to be doing for Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, we're going to be doing primetime plays, over-unders. Hit us with it.
And next week on our show, it's going to come out the day after Labor Day. We're going to have Kelly in Vegas on to talk about a couple season-long props that we really like. So tune into that for sure. All right, quarterbacks. I talked about it earlier. Josh Allen's running. So I'm taking Josh Allen under 475.5 rushing yards. If you look at each year, his rushing yards, while the attempts are still pretty high, like I said, he's averaged like 100 attempts. It's going down every year because I think they are trying to conserve him, trying to keep him healthy. I like him being under 475.5 rushing yards for the year. He was under 475 last year. I don't anticipate that going up.
Yeah, another thing with Josh Allen, just signed the $43 million a year deal.
Yeah.
Do you want to try to protect him, maybe run him a little bit? I know he's built like an indestructible Mack truck for the cold weather coming out of Wyoming, playing in Buffalo, but you still got to think he's going to run less and less. My rushing total, and this is no surprise because you've seen me just bash him tons, we're going to do it more. Under 700.5 Jalen Hurts because he's not going to start all the games. He's going to get benched. He's not going to be good. So the Eagles are going to suck. They're going to say, F this guy. The city's going to turn on him when they score 10 points a game, and he's not getting to 700.5 because he's not going to start 17 games. He's going to start like 6.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. I'm not a buyer on Jalen Hurts at all.
Yet you criticize me so much for saying this.
Well, I mean, 25 is really low.
He's going to suck. Look, good is good. You know? Well, anyway, all right.
I mentioned before Matthew Stafford. It wasn't 26.5. It was 27.5 passing touchdowns. I have him over 27.5.
Well, it's funny. I have him over 4,600.5 yards is the one I took. I think when you look at the Rams, everybody thinks balance. You think of the Todd Gurley years, blah, blah, blah. They ran the ball and ran play action because that's what they had to do with Jared Goff. McVay knows what he's doing, and he's going to adjust his offense, having a gunslinger like Matt Stafford that he hadn't have, and also Cam Akers being out there having running back attrition. They're going to chunk the ball, and Stafford's going to throw for 5,000 yards.
I agree with most of that. What I would caution is that even in his banner year with Jared Goff when they went to the Super Bowl in 2018, he threw for 4,600 yards.
I get that, but I just think I cannot think more lower of Jared Goff, and I just think McVay this is a huge upgrade.
Fair. Speaking of that number, I have Tom Brady over 4,650.5 passing yards. I just think, if anybody watched that the no huddle offense this weekend and went 93 yards in 7 plays. Guys locked in.
I can't believe I'm saying this, and I know that he's 44 and they're not as worried about it. If the Bucs want to, I don't know if anybody's going to be the 07 Pats, but they've got. I mean, they could really turn it up if they want to.
Yep.
It's in play. The question is just how much of a do they care about scoring? Do they care about eating people's children every week on that field? But if they want to, it's in play. I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, my only question is Brady. Brady could care less if they win and he throws for 130 yards. Is the only that's the only negative I've got on it. So I like it. My next one, I've got over 4,250.5 yards for Joe Burrow. The question with Burrow, certainly coming off the knee injury, but I like the weapons in Cincinnati. I like T. Higgins. I like Jamar Chase, who may start a little slower, but I think him and Burrow have that chemistry that's going to open up the deep ball that A.J. Green could never catch last year. Tyler Boyd's solid. Mixon's a pretty good, decent receiving back, and they're going to play from behind a lot because they're in a tough division. My question, the only thing with Burrow is, like I said, he's coming off that knee injury, and Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, it's not the best fantasy-friendly defense, a lot of cold weather games, but they're going to be playing from behind and throwing it. The question is, I just hope that Burrow will get the ball out quicker and stay healthy, but if he stays healthy, he's going to fly over 4,250.5 yards.
Love it. That's all I got.
Okay, I have 2 more. I have Kyler Murray over 4,100.5. I know that last year you mentioned after the shoulder injury, his passing yardage and a lot of stuff declined, but I think he takes a step forward in that offense. DeAndre Hopkins had a good year last year, didn't get in the end zone. Yeah, he's going to be great. And they've got a lot of other just kind of guys. I'm curious how Rondale Moore is going to be kind of gadgety his rookie year. I think Andy Isabella still kind of can make some plays. They've got Christian Kirk still there. I know he's never really broken out, but I think overall their offense is just going to take a step forward. It's going to get wild in those games. And I think at 41.5 is not enough. And my other one.
Can you imagine if the Cardinals picked DK Metcalf over Andy Isabella?
I know.
I think about it a lot.
And actually, that's my and I have under 4,600.5 on Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that he's not a guy that's going to, I know that the total's higher because it's 17.
22 attempts a game.
Yeah, I just think they're balanced, and that's the big reason why. And that's what I got on the quarterback sportsbook plays. Check that out. Our futures are up. We're live in New Jersey. You placed your bets in New Jersey. Yep. Super excited. We're live in Jersey. We're going to continue doing that, building the sportsbook and our fantasy props all year long.
We're going to keep track of it too. And I want to be clear. So I live in New Jersey. Every pick that I'm giving you, I'm betting with my own money as well. So ride with me. All right. Tight ends. This is the most interesting position in fantasy this year for me because there are 2 very clear guys that are way above the rest. I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, we have the same one too. I think almost everyone's going to have the same one too. Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. That was played by Marty Sneezing, not a fart for anyone that is watching.
I'll take it out.
All right. Travis Kelce, talk to me about him.
I just feel like the consistency with Kelce, you know what you're getting. You know exactly what you're getting. He's the focal point of KC's offense, basically, and Tyreek the deep balls and getting him the ball in the field, and Kelce just work in the middle. His chemistry with Mahomes is phenomenal. He's going to get tons of targets, tons of touchdowns. And the thing is in fantasy, if you trust yourself, it's so much about are you going to put in that extra work as an owner? But if you trust yourself as an owner, taking Travis Kelce early, if you know you're going to work that waiver wire and get value picks, a running back, receiver, it's so worth it because you're getting what's the jump between Kelce. That's an extra 5-7 points a week. How big? It's an enormous.
Between Travis Kelce and tight end 3 last year was 112 points.
That's almost 8 a week.
Massive.
That's 7.5 a week.
Massive.
And so that's the gap I'm looking for. You got to make up for. You're going to have to make up for that if you take a tight end early. But if you trust yourself and you're going to put him, and you're obviously putting in the work if you're listening to our incredible Fantasy Football Factory pod, sponsored by our great friends at Miller Lite. But if you're going to put in the extra work, I like going Kelce early.
If you have a pick anywhere between 8 and 12, pray Travis Kelce falls to you. You just have to be okay with your running back room being a little bit less sexy right after the draft and your friends clowning you for that. As long as you're okay with that, Travis Kelce, past 3 years, he averages 144 targets. Past 3 years, averages 102 catches. Averages 1,300 yards, averages 9 touchdowns. This guy is as consistent as they come. With your first round pick, you need something that is a sure thing. You can't have that guy get hurt. You have to have that guy do well. There's no safer play in fantasy than Travis Kelce in the first round. There's such a big disparity between him and tight end 3. you put yourself in a major advantage taking Travis Kelce. I would highly encourage anyone, and I've been one of the most anti-tight end drafting high guys out there for the last several years. Take Travis Kelce first round. You'll be happy.
I mean, you're starting with a 7.5 point advantage every week.
Yes.
That's a significant number. And I like Darren Waller. I have him number 2 as well, but I think you like him more than I do. I like him more than Kittle, but I was looking at that. You love Waller.
I almost had Waller TE1.
Okay.
He's
got such a good
TE1.
target share in that offense.
He does. He had the same amount of targets as Travis Kelce last year. They both had 145. He had 9 touchdowns last year. It went from 3 the year before, being like, okay, can this guy really be, the real deal? Is he a real tight end 1 in fantasy? He went to 9 last year. So Travis Kelce, averages 9 the past 3 years. He's, I think he was at 11 last year. Darren Waller, I think, can take that next step. And I don't think he can be like a 10 touchdown guy. I think this guy can be like a 14 to 16 touchdown guy. He can fly.
His athleticism and speed are phenomenal. The big thing, we took fantasy so much about, target share. I mean, look at this receiving core. Aguilar had the big year last year. He's gone. I mean, we have Henry Ruggs out there as a speed guy, but he's more of a track guy. He's not an elite number 1. Waller's number 1.
So he finished 33 points behind Kelce last year, which again just speaks to how incredible Travis Kelce is. If you have a round 3 pick and Darren Waller in a 12-team league and Darren Waller is there, I would absolutely take him. Maybe even at the end of round 2, honestly. Again, he's just so safe. Last year, he would have finished wide receiver 8. We're talking like DK Metcalf type numbers in a position where there aren't DK Metcalfs walking around. This guy is legit, and I don't think he just had a career year. I think he is continuing to ascend. I would not be surprised if Darren Waller overtakes Travis Kelce this year as the unanimous TE1 in fantasy.
So look, I've got a number 2. I'm not hating on any of that logic. I've got George Kittle number 3. Kittle, kind of one of those guys, we all remember the year. I mean, he had over 1,300 yards a couple of years ago. The thing with Kittle, it's like we all see him running in the open field. It's a sight to behold. Just watching a man like that truck around the field.
He's a stallion.
But they're injury prone. Quarterback, Jimmy G, Trey Lance things up in the air. It's a team that wants to run the football, and they've got other weapons. There's just he's my solid number 3, but he's number 3.
Yeah. So I see him. I personally think he's getting way overdrafted. Reason being, he does not put it in the paint. He is probably the best tight end in football, real life football. In fantasy football, he's played 4 years. He scored 14 touchdowns. That's not elite status. That is.
Tight ends, you need it in the red zone.
You need it in the red zone.
You want,
Just due to the offense he plays in, where it is very run based and run first, he's never going to be the number 1 option. Plus, they've got some playmakers on the outside, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. So he's going to be sharing in that. You got Jimmy G, who cannot throw the ball. You've got potentially Trey Lance, who, he can throw the ball, but he's going to be a rookie. He's going to be a lot of mistakes.
It's going to be, and the thing with Trey Lance, if he does come in there's going to be a lot of deep balls, but there's going to be games where he completes 8 balls.
The current ADP position for George Kittle is 30, and I think that's 30 spots too high. If I didn't get one of these top 2 tight ends, which I'm going to be very clear, cater your draft strategy around getting one of these 2 top tight ends. In my big league, I had the 10th overall pick, and I was very concerned because I was pretty sure Darren Waller was not going to make it to me in round 3, and I wanted an elite receiver. So I actually traded my 2nd round pick back.
And it took Waller.
And I took Waller. I didn't think Kelce was going to be there. He
ended up being
there. I did. So I got him in the 3rd round. So instead of getting what would have been Lamar Jackson, Travis Kelce, and Antonio Gibson, I ended up with Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Darren Waller, which is a lineup I was much more comfortable with.
Yeah, I like that one.
So I am big buying the top 2 tight ends this year. If you don't get one of those top 2 tight ends, drafted around 12 or later.
So you've got tier 1 is those 2 in the next, the second tier.
There's no tier 2.
Yeah, exactly. It's tier 4.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
it's like tier 1 and then it's tier 7.
I've got Mark Andrews 4 because I just like the fact that they stretch the field with him. I think having a tight end that's a little more vertical.
He puts it in the paint.
Yeah, he puts it in the paint, scores touchdowns. My favorite is Tyler. The guy I love this year is Tyler Higbee, coming back the same stuff we talked about with Cooper Kupp.
Tight end 5.
I love Tyler Higbee this year with Stafford. Love it.
He had one game where he blew up. But I
just think they're going to use him so much with Stafford in this offense. He's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. I've got him 5. Let's talk about Kyle Pitts.
Okay. Incredible athlete.
No, I'm not questioning his athleticism. What I'm questioning is tight ends. The transition for tight ends in the NFL is not receiver. It's a growing pains thing. The pro game is completely different for tight ends. And I think Kyle Pitts, while his upside in his NFL career might end up being spectacular, he's getting overrated this year.
So I am also not buying Kyle Pitts. We both have him as tight end 6. He's going tight end 4 now, ADP 46.
He went for a lot in my auction too.
Yeah, he is a beast. Like, he catches almost exclusively touchdowns and first downs. He lines up in the slot. He lines up at X. He lines up all over the place, and he is a weapon. But you're right. We've only seen the from tight ends coming out of college to playing in the league, only 3 ever have gotten more than 800 yards and I believe 6 touchdowns in their first year. That's what you need to be a fantasy relevant tight end, is 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. So the odds of Kyle Pitts doing that based on history is not good. That being said, in Atlanta, his head coach is Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is a former tight ends coach. Arthur Smith is going to know how to utilize Kyle Pitts. I just don't see him making it to that tier 1. He does. I wouldn't be surprised if next year we're talking about Kyle Pitts as overall TE1. I won't be surprised. But for this year, I am not buying, I'm not betting on the fact that he will do that year 1.
My thoughts on, look, I kind of almost hope he has a slightly disappointing year 1, and then I'm going to have him on every team I've got next year because I think he's going to learn the NFL and still going to have a great career. I'm also on the sports book. I'm on under 825.5 yards on Kyle Pitts as my 1 tight end problem.
Okay. I like that.
And I've got TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki. And my number 10, I took Robert Tonyan just because he had the 11 TDs last year, but I'm worried he might regress on the touchdowns a little bit. I was between him and Jonnu Smith, who I like a lot in New England.
I don't want to compare Kyle Pitts to TJ Hawkinson because they're completely different players. Hawkinson is a really, really great blocker in addition to being a good receiver, not nearly as fast, not nearly as big. Hawkinson was the top 10 pick. They're both top 10 picks. Yeah. Hawkinson is going into year 3. In year 2, he had 141 fantasy points. That's not good. That's under 10 a game.
Yeah.
So while he's not the same guy, he does have the similar draft status. And that's what we're looking at in year 2. So temper your expectations for Kyle Pitts. He is not Darren Waller right now. He is not Travis Kelce right now.
It could be. In a couple years. In a couple years, it could be. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
He could be this year, but I'm not betting on that.
No. I think he's so flashy, too. He's getting overdrafted. Do you have any tight end props you want to hit in the sportsbook before we get out of here?
Yes, there's one I just want to talk about as far as the rankings, is that it's Gronk. Gronk's getting disrespected. His over-under right now, I think, is 550 yards and earned 500 yards pass receiving, and then 5.5 touchdowns. Like, what? Like, that's Gronk's line? I am a big... Gronk is fantasy relevant. He didn't really play well at all until maybe week 5 or 6 last year against the Packers. And then he started, putting in the paint a lot more. Super Bowl, he had 2 touchdowns. Like, Tom Brady looks for him. Gronk is his guy. My sports book, two plays. I have Gronk over 5.5 touchdowns, which right now is at plus 100.
Add that to my card as well. I like that one.
It's wildly low. Tom Brady just said, I think it was like a week and a half ago, he said Gronk's playing like I've never seen him before.
Yeah. He's recharged too, man. He had last year coming back off COVID, new system, like we said. That same thing with Brady. New system, new team. He had the year off.
Yep.
He's back in football mode.
What do you have for tight ends?
I just have Kyle Pitts under 825.5, and I'm adding the Gronk over 5.5. That's it.
Okay.
That's my 2.
One more I'd recommend to all of our listeners to add. I think I went 4 units on this. Darren Waller over 1,050.5 yards. It's just way too light. This guy's a monster. Again, I have super high hopes for him. I almost put him at TE1, but the fact that Kelsey's just so safe, like I would draft Travis Kelce in the first round. I would not draft Darren Waller in the first round just because I know he's going to be there in the second and hopefully the third round. But let's close on this. How early is too early for drafting a tight end for you?
Kelsey at 7 overall.
It's too early?
No, it's not too early. Okay. No, I agree with everything your whole Kelsey rant. I just word for word agree with. Okay. I think, maybe behind, do you take Travis Kelce behind Devontae Adams still? Close. It's a big debate.
I have Tyreek Hill as my wide receiver 1, so I take Travis Kelce over every non-running back.
Okay. No, I don't have a problem taking Kelce as high as 7 overall.
Yeah. If you don't get one of these top guys, how long are you waiting for a tight end?
Forever. Like in my auction, I spent $2 on Jonnu Smith because I like his upside in that Pats offense. I like the tight ends. And I made the key mistake Shay hates. I took Evan Ingram too, because anyway.
Don't do it. If you unless you're playing in some weird league. So I usually clap back. Somebody got in my DMs and they sent 2 tight ends. And I was like, do not draft 2 tight ends. And they're like, my league actually starts 2 tight ends. It's like, what the fuck? What kind of league you playing in? But do not draft 2 tight ends. You will never, ever play your backup tight end. If you draft Irv Smith or someone like that, you can just draft him. You can pick up somebody else.
I hate that injury on him. And he out 46.
I'm not sure the exact timeline for him, but
I hate that because I like his upside.
Well, you're also about to get that notification every Friday. Evan Ingram has been downgraded to out every single Friday.
Look, I mean, I admit, I gotta let the Ole Miss
Ole Miss guy. Yep.
Yeah. Love the Rabs.
Yeah, but all right. So we got a big show coming up next week.
Huge. Kelly Vegas, exciting.
Kelly Vegas doing season-long props, and then we have our draft right after.
Yeah, we have our draft, and we just want to thank again our great sponsors, Miller Lite, for sponsoring this, and just all of you guys too. Both Steven and I getting tons of messages.
Yeah,
we're trying to answer as many questions as we can for you guys. It does get a little tough. What we ask of you, we're going to just say this publicly. We appreciate your support so much, and this is the beginning of us doing FFF Pod. We want to answer your questions, but also we're asking y'all to support us as well. Fire some questions, we'll answer them. Please leave us a good review on iTunes. Follow us on Instagram. We're across all social at FFF Pod. Also want to thank Madeline, our social team. Yep. We're building our TikTok. So we're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at FFF Pod. Instagram, we're at like 8,500 followers. We're trying to get to 10K. We appreciate all the new subscriptions we've got, or new followers we've gotten. Please follow us on Instagram.
If we get to 10K on Instagram before the draft next week, we will release our full top 100 cheat sheets for both of us. So Ben and I will have different cheat sheets. Obviously, we're a little bit different on our rankings, but we will each release.
We're a little bit different. A lot of things.
We'll each release our full top 100. So if you're not following us on Instagram, especially at FFF Pod, go do that now. We appreciate all you guys listening.
Thanks to our team too. Martin Black doing a great job producing.
Our guy Richie.
Yeah, our guy Richie helping. I love our team. Love what's going on 3 weeks in, and appreciate you guys supporting the Fantasy Football Factory Pod presented by our good friends with Late. Great tasting, less filling.
Time to punch out.